This is the most broken build I've seen in a long time, and it has something like 800 million damage, around 400,000 max hit, something like 50k-ish max fizz, basically infinite EHP. This is a Minion Pact life stacking Blade Vortex Gladiator. Now, there's kind of a key interaction which is going on, which is that Blade Vortex allows you to snapshot damage. It's been explained a lot on Reddit and in other videos, so you'll see a lot of different build makers explore this over the next couple of days with different setups. But in essence, when you sacrifice your minion with Minion Pact with Blade Vortex, you get that damage on PV. As long as you refresh those stacks on Blade Vortex, that bonus damage from Minion Pact will apply to all the blades, and consistently. So as long as you don't drop your stacks, you can retain the benefits. You don't need to play things like, Dark Marionettes. Now, there's a new minion, or not new minion, there's a minion that's been leaked called the Unholy Aberration. This is from the Act 9 Trinity boss and also from the Carcass boss. Those Scorpion ads that spawn, they have a 1400% increased minion life, or base life, I guess, which is double what a perfect meat sack would give. So you get an insane amount of base life on these things. My minions have about 3.2 million life, which translates to about 115,000 base physical damage for Blade Vortex, which is absolutely insane. Now I combine this with a life stacking template using Wrathpith Globe, and basically because of how much life I have, I get 930% increased crit strike chance and 930% increased spell damage. Those two things alone pretty much make up the core offensive battery of this build. You don't need much else. Defensively, I have a ton of life, and I also have Gladiator Lucky Blocks, so in many ways this is actually a very simple build. The details of it I think are very cool though, and I think the construction of this on Gladiator actually makes the most sense. That said, this is also not a fake build. You will see builds that have better numbers on POB than this. Firstly, I don't play Dissolution. That is not a real item. Dissolution is one of the worst items in the game. When I see that on a character, I pretty much just close that POB immediately. It's very ghost proof in a lot of ways. It has a lot of mixed mitigation against degens. It has pretty good recovery all around. It has various setups you can kind of alter around, but it is a fairly flexible build. And it's something that I think will be really interesting to cover in detail, and we'll see if there's someone has a better setup for, like, especially void farming coming up, but this is just absolutely insane. Now before I actually get into the POB, if you want to see how I leveled this character, I took it from level 1 to 100 in about 8.5 hours while eating, while also watching the videos and stuff, so very, very quick. Basically what I did was I did the Connect Fusillid leveling setup that I did once upon a time for twink leveling, and then I equipped Binos and Foulborn Wrathpith on this character without changing much else. Got 100% poison chance, and I was dot capped with this, because that's how broken life stacking template with Minion Pact is. If you want to know how I did it, go watch the VOD. I'm not going to cover that in detail. I do want to cover this build in detail though. I think it's really interesting. Especially in terms of like how I made the items, how I'm choosing to set the defensive set and everything, and why I think this is going to be really, really good for voids. So, first things first, why Gladiator? Lucky block. EHP is not a stat I usually care about that much, but when it comes to doing Valdos, you do take a lot of hits. Gladiator is traditionally extremely overpowered. War of Attrition in harder content can be really good. It's not really ever going to get maximum value when your damage is this high. And my damage is also not high enough yet that I can be doing 5-minute maps with 1 ring off and 100% deli. I will need to alter my setup for that. I also take Bitter Heresy. This is actually super good. Now, I was considering balancing my resist or my attributes for Rational Doctrine, but instead of that, I'm just going to play Bitter Heresy with Zealotry. That 30% Fizz is Chaos is just like net gain. Malediction is, I think having multiple sources, both from this and Dark Seer, makes that more consistent feeling. And then the extra crit chance is nice as well. But basically, there weren't really great ascendancies to take. I couldn't really go for Corruption's Embrace. Both the recovery on this is a little bit suspect in terms of its regen, and it's also kind of hard to actually get enough corrupted items because I wanted to play mirror items instead, especially amulet and ring slots. And then when I'm giving up 1 ring, it's no good. It's also the same reason why I can't play with Screams of the Desiccated and +1 ring, because then you can't run the maps that require you to take off 1 ring, which sucks. The final one I'd also consider is Primal Owl. It just gives you more Unleash Seals, but I don't think this is important either, because I do want to be relatively frequently casting so I don't accidentally drop my stacks of PP. Because that'd be the worst case scenario. Ascendancy wise, I've also stolen Brutal Fervor from Slayer. I think Overleach is really good. The DR from this is pretty good as well. I think it felt better than Fortitude in a lot of scenarios, although Fortitude does allow you to take more Fort effect scaling from here and then also grab regen. So the tree itself is fairly spread out because I'm playing 4 voices setups. 2 of these are 1P voices, 2 of these are 3P voices. I don't know how this is the case, but 3P voices are like 100 some odd divines, and 1P voices are only 400. So I just went for 1P voices because they're just like, they're right there, you know, they're not that expensive compared to that. It's an expensive build though, because it's, again, an endgame build, and I got nothing else to do in softcore trade this league. This will be my last build of the league. It's also a build that's able to get suppressed cap by just tattooing everything out because of ostentation. I am playing for 6 life masteries, give me that 10% more life. I am not going for blood magic because I do think there are better things I can get reservation wise on the tree. Let's talk about this ostentation shield. This is 32800. A lot of people will opt to play ostentation at this location, at Eternal Youth. They'll also opt to play it over here for this character. It's not bad. I don't like this location very much. You cannot play it here if you want to play ostentation, because it doesn't actually catch ostentation. There's no keystones. And the last one that's okay, I guess, like, there's this location and this location as well. Both those can be wormholed using Impossible Escape to grab notables. What you're mostly trying to do though is get Axiom Morden. This gives you increased minion life. You can see that for my race Spectre, this jewel goes from 1 million to 3.2 to put this in. Now, you don't need to do this necessarily. Obviously, it has a little bit of damage overkill, and there are things like, for instance, jewel implicits that have minion max life, or like cluster jewels or jewel modifiers. So you can get minion max life without doing this. That said, it is really nice to tattoo out your whole tree. And yeah. I also managed to get Scepter Pinnacle here, which is spell block. There's another one down here if I want to get more spell block. There's consideration for it to push from 93 to 95 with spell block lucky, but yeah. Very, very, very important to build. But this was cheap. I bought it for like 4 divines. And there's just so many different jewel locations you could play. There even might be better ostentations in this location I'm not thinking about. Well, elegant hubrises, rather. Yeah. Rest of the tree, you can look at it, figure it out. I mostly try to tattoo regen. I tattoo some fire res. However, Foulborn Red Dream didn't end up being worth it over here. And then over here, I take reduced crit. Gem-wise, it's fairly straightforward. BB Minion Pact, Greater Unleash, and then just some damage supports. I'm using an imbued increased critical strikes, and then I swap out Ink AoE and increased crit damage depending on the content that I'm doing. Arrogance, Precision, Vitality. If you wanted, you could conceivably get an imbued vitality with arrogance, but that means you'd reserve a lot of life, right? So I don't really want to do that, because flat life reso is actually not that good. In my gloves, I play Flesh and Stone, Righteous Fire, and Despair. Despair is my main offensive curse. Very, very powerful. Gives me something like 50, yeah, almost 60% more damage. Righteous Fire, I run in maps when I need damage, but I would almost never take this into a Void Field, ever. It's just like, there's Sirius can just disable your recovery, so that sucks. Raise Spectre, extremely important. This is a level 31 Raise Spectre. I'm also using Awaken and Power in this, Minion Life, and then Companionship. It is my only minion, so it has 80% more life. Just absolutely crazy scaling on this. I don't think you get that 15% of hit damage taken from the life beforehand, but this is what's providing that Spectre for Minion Pact. Aura-wise, my core auras are Arctic Armor, Tempest Shield, Zealotry, and Enlighten. I like the Tempest Shield setup more than I like playing Versatile Combatant, because I think going from 87 to 95 is pretty significant in terms of Lucky Block. And even the base block to get this started feels really good. I'm not playing an Enlighten 5 yet, but I could be doing that. And then finally, Shield Charge, Fast Attacks, Frostblink. Okay, cool, cool. Items are where this build gets a little bit more dicey. So first things first, it's possible that Dark Seer isn't the best. It's possible that if I went for an elemental setup and then went like for something else like Grace the Goddess, high rolled, or just went like fire damage, went for, I don't know, generic scaling, maybe like nebulous. There's a bunch of different things you could do. I opted for Dark Seer because it does give me life. That's number one, and it does give me flat ES that I should be able to recover. Oh, I guess I need a little bit of armor on here still for Divine Shield, but once I get the armor there, it should be fine. I might take this minute. And that would give me a lot more degen mitigation with Divine Shield. Okay, so I need to fix that later. Spilled. So Dark Seer is pretty solid. It also gives you +2 levels, which does scale that Raise Spectre even more. So this in itself is something like, I don't know, about 30-ish% more damage, which is not bad. Wrathpith. This is a regular Wrathpith globe, but it has been double slapped by the Volatile Vol Orb turn those 5% into a 6%, and turn that 15 spell block into a 17. This was fairly cheap when I bought it. I don't expect it to stay cheap. Last two uniques in the build. Apostate, this lets you run ES gear and convert that into life, and then Mage Blood. I'm running Mage Blood because of the aforementioned reasons, but also for life builds, Progenesis uptime is mid. Now, in combat, in theory, I have full Progenesis uptime because I have this and a Watcher's Eye that gives me flask generation. However, there is a ghost, the script, that disables your flask recovery and your flasks entirely, basically, so in that scenario, this would suck. I actually want to go through jewels for the top of crafting wares, because jewels are kind of boring. So I'm running voices, as you can see. I'm running a Dorn setup, and then with the Dorn, you run jewels with max life and multi, max life, and also max res. I need at least 2 of these. This gives me a total of +8 max lightning res. When you pair this with the Topaz Flask, it lets you at 90 lightning res, and then Melding of the Flesh lets you put that as 90 all max res. Very, very good stuff. And then Forbidden Shields, I mentioned I still Brutal Fervor. I'm also playing 1 medium. This gives me Overballing Malice, converting my physical damage to chaos, and also gives me Wither on hit. Towering Threat. So there's a mixed jewel. You basically you fracture Overwhelming Malice onto a crit jewel. Then you use Reflecting Fog or Refracting Fog or whatever to turn this into an AoE cluster, then Reforge Life to get that Towering Threat. If you want to do this. I don't even know that this is good, but, we'll see. Let's talk about these rares. This is where I had a lot of fun on this character, actually, crafting. Not something I usually say. So firstly, +2 Minion skill gems. This I did through recoms. You can reforge Minion over and over again, and try to hit, and that's annoying. Why do people... I just got a trade haggle offer. I used recoms on this because I didn't want to do the reforge. Once you recom, let's say you just like recom any base onto this. Now there's specific things you can do with... I should already talk about that. Exclusive modifiers. In essence, you can use a Weeping Essence. So let's say I have a Hubris Circlet with +2 Minion, and then a Lich Circlet that I want to move that onto. Let's say they both... The first one has + Minion, and you want to have it as an isolated prefix. On my Lich Circlet, I would use a Weeping Essence of Doubt. This rolls an evasion roll, a flat evasion roll onto the helmet that is also matching a evasion roll that naturally exists on helmet. So it's not of the essence, like of the fleet or something like that. Or fleeting, something like that. Then when you recom, it can never choose that. It will always delete that modifier, and it will always keep the Minion skill gems. So if it takes the new base, it will take Minion skill gems, and if it takes the old base, it will also take Minion skill gems, because that can actually appear naturally. So that's the exclusive mod thing you can do with essences. There's a few other things you could go for, and suffixes you're using, I think, attribute essence, but they need to be non-native. So evasion can't roll naturally, right? But if you were to use an evasion helmet on the other side, you might be in trouble. That's how I recommed it. Fracturing Orb. Once I fractured this, I used a Deafening Essence of Woe till it hit T1 ES, and then I did Reforge Chaos on suffixes. I think I used Foulborn Exalt to hit the final resistance as well. And then finish the benchcraft. The gloves are kind of similar, so not really though. I start with base Warlock gloves, Overqual, Hollow Fossil, Fracturing the Abyssal Socket. And then for this, I'm also using Deafening Essence of Woe, trying to hit either T1 ES or T1 Life, and then using Exalts or locking and reforging. I think this was his natural hit. It's just a bit of a brute force craft on prefix. Afterwards, same deal. Lock prefixes, reforge chaos for suffix is the fastest way to get that chaos res. And I do need a lot of chaos res. Let me see, I'm only overcapped by 5. Abyss Chill I just bought. Super cool. This actually does basically spell block at me, as long as I've been hit recently. And then over here, this is a delve mod. So people were telling me to do the other thing, which is you craft Elder Boost with plus level Raised Spectre, and then you do plus socketed Minion gems in your gloves. So this plus level of socketed Minion gems can be found in the delve. It can be found on both gloves and boots. I prefer to do on boots for one main reason. Gloves can actually roll 3 proper defensive prefixes, really big for apostate. Boots, however, you always need to have move speed no matter what. Like, I'm not going to play a build without it. So basically, you're only doing 1 prefix, which is life anyway, and then I want to get suppression here as well. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Why is my hair so crazy? Ugh. So you grab that, recom it, same deal. It's a prefix that you're recomming, so you can do the exclusive mod thing with essences again onto this base. So I think this one needs to be I think both flat evasion and flat armor work because it's a hybrid base. Once it's on here, you're hoping for a fracture. If you miss the fracture, you can do the same thing with a different pair of phantom boots. From there, I did, I think, chaos resistance essences until I hit T1 suppression. And then I did Balborn Exalt, I think, for resistance suffix after filling prefixes. Once your suffixes are done, you can go Wild Bristle Matron, Reforge Life, and do that until you hit tier 1 life, and then end with Benchcraft Moose Speed Chill. Really cool. Alright. These are all bought, actually. I did self-craft one of these earlier, but it's actually really easy. This is, I forget, I think this is essences. I think this is a crit essence for the amulet. Until you get T1 life. You want to make sure that you quality it before you use a Reflecting Mist, and then use Reflecting Mist and pray really hard. A 3 positive, I would be looking for different things, but yeah. This is the ring that I actually like. So when I'm running my 90 maps, my 10% less damage per piece of equipment on, this is the ring that I run. It's really, really, really crazy good because min charge is just absolutely incredible. You can see that max hit wise, it's giving me like, yeah, 22% max hit, which is just absolutely crazy. I can also use Spider. When I do need more damage in maps, I can actually disable either Flesh and Stone or Arctic Armor and then turn on Aspect of the Spider for some extra damage. And that dot multi doesn't matter to me because I am a crit hit-based build. Life plus 3 endurance charge can only happen on helical rings, I think. I don't think it can actually happen on manifold rings, which is increased prefix modifier. So I sacrificed about 100 life in order to get plus 3 min endurance charges instead of plus 2. Which I think is kind of worth it in the end. So yeah, that's the character. I'm very, very excited. I'm going to be saying this just straight into voids pretty much all day tomorrow. Hopefully it'll last more than one map. There are definitely changes that could be done. If you like this template and stuff, I'd be really curious about different ways in which this Minion Pact setup, especially with Lifestack, I mean, you could go ES stack as well, can be scaled up really heavily, because obviously you're going to see people just one-shotting bosses with their Frostbomb instability. You'll see people making mapping builds with like tons of explode and whatnot. I personally don't care about any of those things, you know. I think that if I'm going to use a mechanic this broken, I really want to be doing the hardest content in the game. You don't need that much damage to map right now. You don't need much at all. So yeah, this is my character. This is Jungler and Void Fast 8th. I hope to see you guys in the Void. And then in SF Hardcore next week.